let's talk about the levels or the types of communication. So every single bit of communication that we're going to discuss in this class can be categorized in these different categories. So each one takes on a particular flavor and rules and richness. Every one is different from the other, and that's why it's important to study each of them and to differentiate between them. So the first one is intrapersonal communication. Intra means within. So intrapersonal communication is communication with yourself. And that will be the next thing the first one that we talk about, the next thing that we discuss is self-communication. Self-communication is the foundation for all of the others, because how we communicate with ourselves deeply affects our ability to do all of the other ones. So the next one is interpersonal communication. Inter means between. Inter is between. Interpersonal communication. That means interpersonal communication is just two people. It's always just two people. This is one of the most common types of communication. We do it almost every day. Most of us do it every day. And it is the richest form of communication that we have with others. That one-on-one, face-to-face contact is the richest form of communication. And we'll study that with media richness theory later. Small group is 3 to 15. When you study small group, you get different theories. Different scientists have different numbers. It's always 3 because it's one more than interpersonal. But that top number where it stops being group and starts being public is debatable. So for this class, we're just going to say 3 to 15 is a small group. In small groups, it's not just one-on-one, so there's politics. There are more dynamics. You have to consider the balance between all the people. So the next level is public. So at some point you reach, we're going to say at 16 for this class, but at some point you reach a place where it's one person really speaking to a group, okay? And that's public communication. So the presentations you give in this class will be public communication. The next level, or the next type, we'll say, is mediated. Mediated means there's something between the sender and receiver. So let's think of some examples. A telephone call would be mediated because the phone is between the two people. Texting is mediated communication, right? Anything where there's something between the sender and the receiver. An email is mediated communication. The next one is mass communication. This would be like a radio address or a presidential speech or a newscast where you're speaking to a big public. Now, you're maybe going to ask me if we were there, what's the difference between, how can you tell the difference between these three? Well, mediated, there's always something between the sender and receiver. That's the big giveaway. And the difference between mass and public is, for public, there's a chance to respond. For mass communication, there is no chance to respond. You're just, as the receiver, you're just the listener, right? So, when the president gives his inaugural address, you don't have the chance to respond to what he says or she says. You don't have a chance to give feedback other than just your, body language if you happen to be there. But usually you're not even there for mass communication. And then another one that people don't think about that often is a consumer communication. So we as consumers have the opportunity to communicate. So usually we do this. I suppose you could say anytime that we buy something, we're saying we approve of this, we like this, we want more of it. But really think about this as a communication more often when we boycott something, when we don't buy something. So I can think of 3 things in recent times, or actually I can think of an example where people are buying something as a communication. But we'll get to that. Okay, so the 3 examples I can think of where people stopped buying things to boycott something in order to communicate would be, just most recently I read an article that listed all of the businesses associated with Trump. So if you're not a Trump supporter, don't go to these businesses, don't buy these things. Like Ivana Trump has a clothesline, for example, and other businesses that supported Trump. And probably there is a similar article for Hillary. If you like Trump and you don't want Hillary to be around, you know, when she had a chance, then don't support these organizations. So that would be using your consumerism to communicate and as a voice. Another example is, there was something about, Chick-fil-A wouldn't hire homosexual people, gay people, and so there's a big movement in the gay and lesbian community and supporters of that community to boycott Chick-fil-A in order to say we think that that's not the right way to behave. So those would be examples of using your voice as a consumer to communicate. Let's see. Those are the levels of communication. If you have any questions, please email me and I'll be happy to talk to you about them.